Alright guys, I ain't got my tablet. I have, it's there. I need my tablet for this one. So how's it going? You alright? Well, since we last spoke earlier today, I've started to think like I want to do Saturday night streaming. Earlier I was like, I'm yet to make an exclusive decision. You know what I mean? Exclusive decision. We'll see. Sorry, I'm getting messages pop up on my screen which are very inappropriate and I can't read them. I just want to go over something with you. I popped out earlier, I was listening to the radio and I was listening to some good music and I was like, got to do Saturday night stream. You know, what's this rubbish here? This would be where dog's jumped up at me. I don't know. Can you hear him? I've just fed him. He's eating away in the background. He's good old Remy. Don't blame him. Yeah, I was driving about earlier, so I went to the chip shop. You know, because I'm starting my health kick on Monday, and so I popped out for some fish and chips. Last ones for a while, and some of you, you know, I've mentioned Steve a few times on here. He's like one of the lads I see every week. You know, on a Friday and that. He's a Liverpool fan. Is Steve? I love Steve. He's mint. He's 70, so he's a right, you know, miserable old, you know. And but I love Steve. And he lives up the mountain near me. I live at the bottom of a mountain, if you like. And he lives right up at, you know, well, not at the top, but it's up the hills, you know, to get to him. And I bought some fish and chips for him. I surprised him, you know. I didn't ask him if he wanted any, because he's one of them that'll be, it's like, no, you're all right, thanks, you know. But, you know, even if he, because he don't, he'd insist on, you know, paying or so, I don't know. So he put a picture in the group chat earlier today of his breakfast, a big fry up, and I was like, oh no, he's not going to be hungry now. So I thought I'd have to leave it as late as possible. So it was about 2 o'clock, 2:30 our time. I went and got some fish and chips for myself, and I got some for him. And I messaged him, I said, I'll be at your house in 5 minutes, just pop outside, I'm dropping something off, I just got the thumbs up. And when I got there, he came out, like, you know, he was like, what are you doing? So I got some fish and chips and mushy peas. And he went, have you? I went, yeah. He went, no, thanks, don't. He went, I'll get you a couple of drinks, like, you know, next time. I said, just behave yourself. So I feel really good, because, like, I made my friend happy. I like doing stuff like that. Now, I'm getting loads of messages on my screen, so I'm going to, disable those. There we go. So yeah, I feel really good, like, you know what I mean? I like it when you do stuff like that. He went, I was just looking around my kitchen, wondering what I was going to have, you know. He went, that's a nice one, cheers, mate. So I was really chuffed. Mine were cold, though, by the time I got home. But anyway, listen, so he's watching the rugby today, and he's just messaged me. And I said, oh, rugby's on, right? Because I know he likes his rugby as well. And he said, yeah, he said, if England lose today to Wales, he said, I'm going to kill myself. So I'm going to watch the rugby just to, I think I better watch it, make sure he's all right, you know. I've tried to get into rugby many times over the years. My friends and, well, my best friend Kenny, he's not with us anymore, Kenny. He was a massive rugby player. His dad was the coach of the, you know, the town team, the big team. And they always tried to get me into it, you know, so I was a bit stocky as a lad, not fat like I am now, I was stocky. And, but I could never get into rugby, really. And sometimes, you know, because of all the drama that's going on with Liverpool and football, how football's changing the top flight, you know, I think, I wish I had another interest, you know, because like my weekends, I don't know about you, but my weekends are like, normally, they're not so much now at the moment, because I'm a bit fed up with it all, but normally, you know, when I was enjoying it a bit more, it was, you know, I'd watch maybe 8 games of football over a weekend, every league going, you can imagine, apart from that French one. So, like, if you're not going to follow football, like top flight football, you know, what exactly can you do with your life? I mean, football's my life. So I'm trying to get into other things, but I don't think it's ever going to work. Anyway, so let's hope England don't lose the rugby, because Steve's a good lad and I don't want him to kill himself. This video is bound to get flagged by YouTube when I upload it, because they'll detect me mentioning that. So, yeah, I mean, was that nice? Yeah, good lad. Oi, I'd rather you were in here, please. Oi. Oi. Come on, out there. Thank you very much. Don't want you going in there. Oh, I'm bugging off. Right, so we did a video earlier about James Pearce, right? Just James Pearce was being heavily criticised earlier for publishing an article with a headline that people think was the wrong headline based on what Jurgen Klopp had said. People were saying he'd spun the headline. You'd have to watch the previous video to see it, and I just wondered if it was justified criticism of him. And in the same video I said, I have noticed, I don't know if you have, but I've noticed since John Henry came out and said that it was, since he implied that they were going to go down the route only of minor investment, I have noticed that clique of journalists that only write about Liverpool have started coming out with a different attitude and in different, I wouldn't say pro-FSG, but quite warming towards them. Not one person that I have seen yet has come out saying, well, they're staying, but the fan base would appear to favour a change. No one's saying that. They're all on the same page, and there's reasons for that, which I think we all know and we've discussed many, many times before. Now, when I did that video earlier, people have said to me, what about Chris Bascom's tweet today? Now, Chris Bascom, I once wrote an editorial many, 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 many years ago, probably when I first started, KopTalk, so late 90s, early 2000s, something like that. And I once wrote an article that mentioned him by name. So I believe he was with the Liverpool Echo at the time. And I will allege that he didn't like that, and someone called me claiming to be Chris Bascom. Now, I might know whether that was Chris Bascom or not, but I'm going to say someone called me claiming to be Chris Bascom. And that person was quite intimidating towards me. I would allege that they were intimidating towards me and not very nice, really. And I'll talk about that in another on another occasion. That will be in my infamous book that's been coming for about 20 years. So I won't say too much about that now, but Chris Bascom allegedly didn't like that, what I'd said, and I don't think it was even critical of him actually at the time. I think I just said something about him being at Melwood and I'd overheard something, because I had someone at Melwood that was in part of a group of people and Chris Bascom was there and my friend was there, and he relayed to me that conversation, and someone claiming to be Chris Bascom called me up and pulled me up for it, and whoever it was quite intimidating towards me and very I said, look mate, I don't know what you're talking about, and I was like, I'm not your mate, don't call me your mate, kind of thing, and other things as well. And I said, in that conversation, I said, I think you're threatening me a little bit here. Your employer's aware of that, because I'm not, I don't like this. And then the attitude changed towards me. They stood down a little bit. And ironically, after that incident, Chris Bascom then went to work for the News of the World, didn't he? And that was considered a really bad move by the fans at the time, because they were saying, well, that's the Sunday version of the Sun newspaper. And Chris Bascom got a lot of stick for that. And me being me, trying to be a good person, even though I could have used that as an opportunity to really go for this person because it had to go at me, kind of thing. But me being a div, I stuck up for him. You know what I mean? I said, well, the News of the World wasn't, as far as I was aware, part of a boycott. It wasn't the Sun newspaper, and he's just trying to do, I don't know. I tried to be nice. You know what I mean? I'm just too. I don't know why, because some of these people wouldn't hesitate to make my life difficult. But for the record, I don't have anything wrong against Chris Bascom or the person that called me up that day and intimidated me and was kind of threatening towards me. But we'll talk about that in the future. For now, it can save. So Chris Bascom put a tweet out today, and it's an article titled Jurgen Klopp, Champions League or not, FSG needs to back my Liverpool rebuild. I haven't read the article, and I'm not going to read the article either, and I guess it's based on the comments that James Pearce touched on. But what I am going to comment on is the bit here that's been brought to my attention, because he's posted the article and then he's posted some words to accompany it, yeah? And he said, and this has upset quite a few people actually, this is put the Olympic standard crying on Twitter from some now LFC struggling would be more tolerable if same folk weren't such miserable. And then he said B asterisk STARDS. I don't want to say the word out loud because I don't want to upset YouTube. If the same folk weren't such miserable bees on here when the team was great over the last 7 years, pity some never cherished it. Here's Klopp on how to get good times back. Now those comments have really triggered a lot of people, and people have been messaging me about that. And before I look at some of the comments to that, what people have replied to that, I just don't understand why you want to antagonise people. I don't get it. I don't get why these journalists do it. They must know the minute you say that, if you're a high profile person within the fan base, where the fans think, rightly or wrongly, that you don't pull the owners up when you should, you don't ask the awkward questions, you haven't got any, BALLSs, you know what I'm saying? The fans think, they have it in their head that the likes of Chris Bascom and the likes of James Pearce, that they think that they are too, they say that they'll say they're on the FSG payroll and things like that. I'm not saying therefore they should only reply to the fans in a certain way. They should be, Chris Bascom and James Pearce should be able to say what they want, right? They're entitled to an opinion. I'm sure they get slaughtered on Twitter by people, right? So they have a right to reply. However, this is very generic, very sweeping statement, really. And I don't get it. It kind of splits the fan base further. And these journalists, if they had anything about them, why are they not turning around saying, why are the fans like this towards me? Why are they like that? Why have they got this feeling? Why? Why do you think that? I will always have my opinions, and I don't claim to be right or wrong. I know I do the Dunk Knows Best thing, but that's a bit of a joke thing, from years ago with the haters and that. It wasn't even started by me, it's just a bit of fun. But if any of you guys, started pulling me up, I'm not talking about a troll or something like that, I'd listen to you, and I'd think to myself, if it was a feedback that I was getting that was quite, the majority was saying it or something, I'd think, right, I'm not on the same page here. I've got to evaluate myself, kind of thing. I'll never change my opinions just for the majority. I'll always stand by my opinions, but I think it's good to say, are we on the same page? And usually on my videos, people are with me, on my website or the podcast or whatever. But I do listen to people when someone expresses feedback in a polite way. I love it, to be honest, I love it. Right? That's not me, Kevin Keegan impression, but I love it. When you can have a difference of opinion with one of you guys on here, when the opening sentence is, don't love you but I disagree, you know what I mean, or love your content but I disagree. And some people say things, sometimes I'll read a comment and I go, I don't agree with that, but I'll reply. And I will never, I just think we're a bit more mature on here, so I don't know, which is quite funny coming from me saying that. You got to listen. So, I want to defend these journalists and say, well, they're biting because of all the aggravation they get. But if you're professional, surely that should be water off a duck's arse to you. Do you know what I mean? Why are they stressed? Why are they stressed? I don't get it. Anyway, so the Olympic standard crying on Twitter from some now LFC struggling would be more tolerable if same folk weren't such miserable bees on here when the team was great over the last 7 years. Pity some never cherished it. Right? So, comments. I'm just going to read comments at you, right? Maybe if the club hadn't rested on its laurels and invested at the right times, we wouldn't be in this mess, Chris. So this Olympic level of crime was justified. We saw this coming. The reason there's Olympic standard crying is because FSG have been Olympic level tight arses. Klopp could have built a dynasty at this club with proper investment. The cry arsing is about owners not going extra yards and sacrificing some of their gigantic future profit for success and priceless memories. It would also be helpful if journeys like you did your job for once and not let our beloved club reach this situation and fall apart so badly. See, and I agree with that one, mate. We were crying because we had so much respect for the team and recognised one signing could have pushed us over the line to many more trophies. And that's the bit, that whoever that is hit the nail on the head for me. Because there's been times when we just needed that. You just feel like if we'd have had that one signing, maybe we'd have got that, won that. And I don't mean that in a naive way or, because fans are always going to want more signings and stuff. This is what I mean. Like, so you can say FSG have overseen us winning things again, but in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, if we'd have had more ambitious owners under Klopp, I think we'd have won so much more. So that's when it comes into like what you're happy with, what you're happy with. Do we win a European League or a Premier League and go, well, that's great, nice one, yeah, great, or do we want it again? You see, for me, every time we've won a cup or a title, which isn't very often, obviously, but the next day I look at that and go, that's history now. You've got to build on that. And I can't listen. I'm way out now. Like, I'm confused with dates and things like now. Ever since COVID, like I honestly can't remember certain things. But correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm sure we won a European Cup, and at the time, well, I know we won a European Cup, but I'm sure when we won that European Cup, that I was like, right now, if we like bring in 2 or 3 quality, right, real quality signings now, like top-notch signings, we're going to win so much more. And it didn't happen. Tell me if I'm wrong, because that's how I felt at the time. Olympic level crying, give your head a wobble. FSG have been asleep at the wheel for over 3 years. 3rd biggest revenue club in the world, runs its transfers like a village corner shop. When it falls off a cliff, through no investment, questions are rightly being asked. Now, I don't see any abuse in these, these people are answering fair and square, right? Of course I cherished it, and I want FSG out, and what? I don't know what that means. And I want FSG out, and what? Stop putting the fans down, you're a journalist. Well, it says you're a journo, not a politician, do your job. Someone's put, imagine even writing this. Ha ha. One of the elite clubs and had to wait 30 years for a league. Been good for 5-6 years. And we shouldn't moan because it's all gone to shit through bad planning and little investment. We love Klopp, but his hands are tied. Great way to get the fan base behind the team by insulting them. People wonder why it's got so toxic. Then I read this. And that's true. So if you're involved in social media, it is toxic. I don't get involved in, believe it or not, in the Liverpool Football Club like community on Twitter, to be honest with you, because I can't be doing with it. I ain't got time to argue with anybody, really. I just think you've got your opinions, I've got mine, all I'm interested in my own. Right, that's it, me. I ain't got time for this. But it's so true. It's a great way to get the fan base behind the team by insulting them. People wonder why it's got so toxic. Then I read this. This is almost Pravda-like. It's now fans' fault for pointing out chasm the club has fallen into. Stirring it up, childish. Everyone cherished it. Everyone bar journalists who are on the club's payroll and said we need to evolve for the future. Klopp has had to work miracles by selling to buy. We now have 7+ players all aged together and some out of contract. It's a mess. We need, and they've put like a dollars emoji. I don't understand how Tory journalists feel like they're entitled to have an opinion on Liverpool Football Club. Do one. Oh my God, the responses proving Chris's point. Here we go, the one in greens. When did Liverpool fans become so self-entitled and arrogant? Or is it a generational thing? Why are the fans that have all commented why are they self-entitled and arrogant? I don't know, maybe it is a generational thing. Maybe older supporters know, expect more. Maybe if you're a younger supporter, I don't know. If you're 20 years of age now, what have you seen in that time? You know, I guess you wouldn't know any more, so you can understand. Is that why you've got this big divide as well on social media? Because you've got younger people, maybe, that are like, they've only seen whatever and don't get it. I don't know, is it that? Because I remember when I was growing up as a Liverpool supporter, you know, if some guy had said to me, yeah, but in the 70s, I'd have been thinking to myself, I'm not interested about the 70s, I don't care about the 70s, mate, it's the 80s and 90s now, or whatever. Couldn't care less what happened before I was born, do you know what I mean? I know that's a bit, I'm not like that as an adult, but I was like it as a young child. Like history and stuff like that didn't interest me in the slightest. But we'll go off there. I was just going to say history. Some people pick and choose history to suit them. Anyway, that's another thing. There was a little effort to sustain it though. Look who we signed after winning the Champions League and the league. That's what the cry asking was about. Somebody says, laugh out loud, bit aggressive, Chris, steady on. He's quoted him, but why don't you just enjoy it? You know, like a question, and this person's put, because it was obvious to everyone that we needed a left back in 2016-17. It was obvious to everyone that we needed a centre back in 2020-21. It was obvious to everyone that we needed a centre midfield in 2022-23. We are always left short by FSG. It's not okay. I don't think people were miserable. There were reasonable fans who wanted more so that we could better be equipped to win even more and to avoid transition seasons like the one we're seeing now. It's arrogant people like you that refuse to be proactive to mitigate the issues. And that's another thing. I've said for a number of seasons or transfer windows or years on here, I know for a fact that I've said we are resting on our laurels. Like Man City, they would win something major and within days they'd probably announce a signing. You know, like they just didn't stop it. You know, again, we're talking money, but it shows the ambition of that particular football club. So they win a European Cup or they win a league title. The next day, 2 days later, they're announcing a massive signing, you know. And that to me shows how they don't go, we've won this, so, you know, let's forget it. With Liverpool over the last few years, it's like we were, you know, when we were really, really good, right? We're not really, really good at the moment, right? But we've had that period, like Bascom is you know, mentioning there, where we have been really good. When people have watched us play, neutral fans have watched us play and gone, oh my God, they're brilliant. Liverpool play brilliant. But during that period, it's like we were getting away with it. And someone somewhere, whether it was the manager, whether you hold him accountable to it anywhere along the line, or whether you say the owners, you know, did the owners turn around and say, well, we're doing all right, we don't need to do anything. You'd think the manager, even if he felt that, would say, yeah, but we need to plan ahead. And that hasn't been happening, has it? And that's why we find ourselves in this situation. So, you know, the odd signing here and there each year, it's usually when someone's left, and you don't really see like a improvement, in my opinion. And I've just felt like Liverpool have been, like other fans may have seen it like this. Other fans may have thought Liverpool are a bit arrogant. They think, you know, they're going to play like this forever. And we haven't done that. And that's why we've now got the talk of this transition and all that. You don't need to have a period like that if you're continually improving your squad, as Rafa would say. Pity you weren't as critical of the owners who have placed us in this position through criminal lack of investment in a squad that could have ensured sustained success. Journos like you are the reason why this club has struggled for the past 30 years. Mediocre. Someone's put, rattled you like the something you are. Keep crying. I can't read some of these because they're swearing, you know. It wouldn't make sense for you to moan because you'd get no exclusives and potentially be barred from press conferences. So stop talking, you disingenuous clown. A lot of the moaning bees seen this coming with the lack of investment. FSG are the tightest owners in the league. Kabak and Davies come to mind. Another FSG kiss. Stick to trousering the money they send you to defend them and tell everyone how wonderful they are. Joke, journo. And it goes, these go on and on and on. Pity you lapped up under investment whilst criticising the fans at the same time. We wouldn't need a rebuild if the likes of you were not so far up FSG's, you know. Now, I always try and be fair, you know, I always try and think, I think journalists are maybe a little bit more level-headed than some supporters, because we can be very passionate and very irrational. Like I say, I have got a long time of experience of interacting with supporters online, and trust me, the worse are on here. And if you're a journalist, if you are someone, I'm sure you get, a lot of abuse thrown at you. But when you look at the comments there, I've focused on the negative ones, but I'm not only picking out the negative. I reckon 95% of the comments there are all like that. I like that, yeah. So it's not. I couldn't even try and make out the comments. Someone else could make a video to this defending that those comments that he made, and then only pick out the ones that supported him. But I only saw one or two. So that's a lot of people, isn't it? That's a high percentage of people saying knock it off. And why wind people up further? I don't understand it. Because when you do that, you're alienating yourself. And these people are not going to like you now. And the first opportunity they get to pile on you, they will do that. You've only got to look at James Pearce, right? When he's done the net spend boys, blah, blah, blah. He might have thought it was funny at the time. He might have got away with it at the time because no one could really argue with what he was saying. And then when it goes wrong, they'll all remember those things. So, for me, as a supporter, right, and an observer to what goes on, if everybody's not on side, I don't think you succeed. That's how I feel, right? And I genuinely believe that everyone plays a part in this. Whether you're the owners, the manager, the players, the coaches, the fans, the journalists. If you've got squabbling in different areas, something is not right. Something's not right. So, I don't know what the answers are. It all points back to how people feel about the owners. Now, you could turn around, well, you won't turn around and say this, but he could turn around and say this, or James Pearce, or any of the other ones. They could turn around and say, well, it's the internet, innit? But I bet if you took a printed version of that around offline, Liverpool, and said, what do you think of that? People would be offended. This. I need to read. I need to be specific because I don't like misquoting people. That wouldn't be fair to him, right? I know he don't give absolutely any thought to. He won't give any thought to me, but I like to be honest and sincere with people. Although he's only referencing Twitter, so maybe you can't pull him up for that offline. But I think if you put a similar thing to people offline and said, well, you shouldn't have been so miserable when Liverpool was winning. I think people offline would be like, well, hang on a minute. I mean, that's just like... It's easy to be happy-clappy and everything when everything's going right. But you have to plan ahead. It's not going to last forever. And I can only look back to Liverpool when I was a kid and when Souness was appointed and how he tried to change so much so fast. And there's a lot of reasons that he tried to do that, right? And it didn't work. And I think Graham Souness would probably defend himself and say, well, I inherited this. If my memory serves me right, you've got to remember this is a long time ago. I was at, 15 or something like that, I think. I can't remember. And I think he was saying, some of you guys will remember, but I think the players were knocking on a bit then. And to cut a long story short, whether they were or not, there was a certain aura or feeling or vibe around those senior players that they were the dogs, like we're the dogs. And Souness, in my opinion, I believe, tried to break that up and tried to change everything, overnight, really. And it didn't work. And it's kind of a bit like that now. I'm not saying that any of our players are like giving it large and that, but we obviously need to change a lot at once. And the thing is, you wouldn't have needed to change a lot at once if over the last few years, during that time, when I think all of us were really happy and grateful and not miserable. I wasn't miserable when Liverpool were winning. But does that not give me the right to say, this is great, but now what? We lost the likes of Wijnaldum, Mane. And then when players like that go, you need to replace. I mean, was Genie Wijnaldum even ever, did we ever find a replacement, I'm allowed to be intelligent enough to know that this is not going to last forever. So if you're one of those people that feels offended by what Chris Bascombe has said there, right, I would say that makes you intelligent and switched on, because you've looked ahead and you've seen it. Now, why isn't one of these journalists, right, writing, why didn't we see this coming? Who is to blame for it? I'm not all about the blame game, mate. I'm not really like that in life. I think that's one of the worst things about Western society, is we spend a lot of time trying to find someone to blame. You know what I mean? Like, or to sue when things go wrong. Whereas I think people in other parts of the world, they'll go, we've got a problem. Instead of finding someone to blame, should we not just fix it? So I don't really want to say, well, you're to blame. And I don't want the owners at Liverpool. So this is a perfect opportunity for me to say this is all FSG's fault. They've got to go now. I think the manager contributes to some of this. I absolutely do. He can't, he's made, I think he's made mistakes at times. We're all allowed to do that. I've made many over the years. I think there are things that Jurgen, I think that he is too good with the owners, I think, because at some point in the future, if we're not careful, he's going to come unstuck and he's going to take all the blame for it, really. He needs to be, I don't know. I don't want to say like he's a yes man. Some of you people do. But I do think he makes it very easy for them. I mean, come on. We've had previous managers, Gerard Houllier, Rafa Benitez would stand up to the owners. Gerard Houllier at the time said Liverpool Football Club is not spending enough money on average in a transfer window to compete with the big clubs, similar clubs. And he didn't come out and cause a drama. I remember him saying it, and he quoted the figure and he went, that's what we spend, and it's not good enough. And that's why David Moyes was eventually pushed down that road of having to change, because Liverpool, even back then, didn't build on their success. So you've got, Manchester United, for example. The reason that they took over us when we collapsed was because they sorted out all the merchandising and they became a brand, which we hate. But in business, sometimes you've got to have that. Liverpool was still like, they had that old boardroom, cigars, pipe, and we didn't wake up for a long time. Last club to get an official website, for example, in the top flight clubs and stuff like that. But the people running the club were brilliant. They were lovely people, I'd rather have them any day, in charge. But they didn't have them, that younger influence maybe, or that, the entrepreneurs, people that knew what you had to do to survive as a football club. And the money wasn't there to give to the managers, as David Moyes, God bless him, knew what he had to do. And it's a shame. It's a real shame. But that's the way it's gone, right? So, for me, I'm sure Chris Bascombe will be watching this video. Chris, I'm alright, mate. I'm just saying. I'm saying what they're saying, to be honest. I mean, what I mean is, I'm only saying what they're saying. What I mean is, but I do actually agree with the criticism that's been thrown at you. I don't think it's right to call people miserable bees. It's really unfair. And I'm sure there is some that are never happy. But listen, I speak to Liverpool supporters every day of my life. It's all I do, all day and night. And I've never, in all that time, thought, God, he's a miserable. You know what I mean? Like, no. Like, our mentality, or the mentality I see, is that we're not allowed. This is what I've tried to do this before people were getting vocal like me. When I used to run my mouth a little bit, I'd say, right, okay, we've won the cup final, whatever cup it is, but we need to do this now. And then you'd get these types of people that would say, are you never happy? And you'd be like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Well, you're already talking about new signings. We just won the cup yesterday. You'd be like, well, yeah, great. I said, but I want to win another one next year and the year after. So I'm looking forward now. Let's capitalise on it while we've got this big, good vibe. And the money. Surely after, success is additional money. to do stuff. So you can be a certain fan, and I would love to be able to play devil's advocate here and say, well, I think Bascom is right, but I just can't. Pity some never cherished it. What Liverpool fan would not cherish it? The only things that I have genuinely seen, guys, at any time during our highs and lows, is Liverpool supporters that are passionate, that care, saying, I see trouble ahead if we don't invest, or we've got another transfer window and the manager's been let down. You've only got to look at some of the signings we've made at times. And you must be the same as me. We've got a transfer window coming up, and I'm already looking at the players that are available on frees, And that's good business. That's great. If you can get, quality players on a free, then great. That's marvellous. But I'm already looking ahead thinking, I know what they're thinking, And I don't fall for this that all supporters want £100 million signings, every week in the transfer window. I just think it is really, to make sweeping statements like that is really, really insulting to people. And whether I'm right or wrong, that just antagonises the fan base further and gives them ammunition to say, you're on FSG's payroll or whatever. Why haven't you stood up and that? Because there isn't a single journalist that I am yet to see that is questioning any of it. Because it's so insulting to think that these journalists think that they only know that their opinion, only their opinion counts. That's like saying every single one of you that responds to a journalist complaining is thick as two short planks. What do you know? You haven't got a degree in journalism, so what do you know? You don't have to have a degree or a GCSE, right? Or a cycling proficiency exam certificate. You don't have to be qualified in any way, shape or form to know that Liverpool squad has been underfunded for years, and that's why we're in the situation we're in now. If you look at the owners, let's say they wanted to hold on to Liverpool Football Club, let's say that is what they're wanting to do, they're now having to sell a part of it to retain that ownership. Whereas if they'd invested a little bit more here and there over the last few years, especially when we've been successful and had more revenue, we would have probably maintained that continuity of being great, and they could have held on to 100% of Liverpool Football Club. So it's come back to bite them in the you-know-what. So it's their own stupid fault, isn't it? So yeah, there's plenty of Liverpool supporters that, I don't want to say are mental, but maybe just a bit passionate or a bit younger, or maybe they just say things sometimes when they're angry, but they don't deserve talking to like that, in my opinion. So that's it. So I'm sure I'll get a lot of aggravation for recording this video, but I've been asked to comment on it, and I will. And like I say, it's nothing personal against any of these journalists. I mean, they probably get sick of everyone having a go at them, right? They probably, maybe Bascom's like, oh, do you know what? You're all doing me. You know what I mean? And he's felt the need to speak up. Fine, great. But me, I'd be thinking, why does everyone think this of me? What have I done wrong? What am I saying wrong? I just don't understand it. I think I would love to know. I would like to speak to a couple of supporters online that follow me on Twitter. Really hardcore Man United fans and really hardcore Tottenham fans, right? A couple of them. And I'd like to ask them and say, what's your media look like? Have you got the same thing at the moment? Because to me, none of them, not one of them, out of all the names that we know, ever asks, those awkward questions. And I've never once seen a journalist come out and say, you know what, actually, you lunatics, maybe you're right. Maybe I have been wrong as a journalist over the last few years. Why can't they open their mind up to listen to what some people say? How can all those people reply and be wrong? Or is it because they're all online that they don't care, they don't count, sorry? It's beyond confusing to me. And I know people say, well, that's because they're on the payroll. Well, no one's giving them money or out like that. You know what I mean? That's daft. But they do have access. And their life's easier if they're towing the line. It is. It is. But you can toe the line and do your job, whatever, to keep everyone sweet and that, without antagonising the fans. And trust me, I'll tell you what, right? If you wind the fans up and you antagonise the fans like that, as has been proven with James Pearce before, it'll bite you in the arse one day because they won't forget.